we are dealing with a rather monstrous topic. A monstrous topic of monstrous proportions, with monstrous consequences. Clearly it's easy to speak of free speech when we imagine a gallant war between the forces of freedom and the forces of evil. It's easy to speak of free speech when we imagine a gallant rebel or Minuteman proudly proclaiming liberty, equality, fraternity on a city street. Freedom of speech, then, is a weapon against oppression and is easiest to defend. But what of the cost? What of a mother who is mourning a dead son who was murdered because someone in a land far away published a book or a cartoon? It's easy to speak of free speech when the colours running are red, white and blue. Not so easy, though, when the colours running are black, white and yellow. Not so easy when that same patriot yells nigger, cracker, chink. What about cunt or kike? What about Semite? What about slut? What about a callous, sneering joke upon a leaflet next to an office water cooler, or a cruel offence struck out the window of a passing car? What are we defending? In 2005, the Gillen's Post newspaper invited 40 different artists to give their interpretation of Muhammad, and 12 caricaturists responded with a drawing each. This is one of the cartoons that was published. And this is the entire page. For those of you who are uninformed in the argument, the Islamic tradition holds an iconism in very high regard. What this means is that contemporary Sunni Islam strictly forbids any pictorial representation of the Prophet Muhammad. And in recent times, this taboo has accrued for itself a very strong hold in the Islamic consciousness. So when these cartoons were published then, it was a big deal. And blasphemy in the highest degree. This led to Islamic protests across the Muslim world, some of which escalated into violence, with instances of firing onto crowds of protesters, setting fire to Danish embassies in Syria, Lebanon and Iran, storming European buildings and embassies, violating diplomatic immunity and racking up a kill count of about 100. 100 people dead, which might not seem like a lot in today's society, but consider that they died for that page in a newspaper and those cartoons. That's 100 mothers, brothers, sisters, friends, lovers, fathers snuffed out for those cartoons. So here's a question for you. Who amongst you believes that these cartoons were worth the lives lost? Or even just one life? No hands? Doesn't surprise me. Okay, why not? Think about it, we'll come back to it. Let's take another example. There was once, and this is a true story, and it happened in the past 10 years. Okay, there was once an author who was put into jail without trial in Europe for the ideas that he had. There was a law in a certain country against speaking about his views, and he was put into jail for the crime of potentially making a speech about his views whilst he was in this country. So, another question. Who amongst you believes that this was fair? Again, no hands. Why not? Why wasn't it fair? Tough crowd. Okay. Well, would it change our minds then if I told you this man's views? That this man was in fact a Holocaust denier. Not only claiming that the Holocaust was nowhere near as bad as it was, but that the Jews somehow brought some of the destruction upon themselves. This man was David Irving, a very widely published author and an on-again, off-again neo-Nazi. Now in Austria, it's against the law to call into question the history of the Holocaust in an attempt to wash out some kind of collective national guilt. David Irving's views then were so offensive to the nation of Austria that they jailed him. But not for doing anything about it, not for even expressing these views, but against the possibility that he might make a speech about his ideas whilst he was there. What this means is that somewhere an idea has been introduced, and it's not clear where this idea comes from. But this idea is that people have the right to not be offended. And this has caused a lot of problems for the right to free speech, because generally it's understood that a right should be upheld as long as it does not impinge on another universal right. And therefore it's often been seen that people's right to free speech should be curtailed in instances where grave offence may be taking place. But this is only if we buy into this idea of the right to remain unoffended as a legitimate right. Let me tell you something. There is no such right. It doesn't exist. People are confusing it with the right to be offended. If I show you my irreverent pictures of your prophet, be offended. If I tell you that your Jewish grandmother made up her stories of genocide, be offended. Please be offended. Be offended and tell me and everyone else who will listen about it. You have that right. That exists. It's inherent in the right to free speech. What you don't have the right to do is to kill or jail someone in an attempt to shut them up because something that they've said has hurt your feelings. The right to remain unoffended is just doublespeak and censorship, and it has no place in the system of libertarian ideas. So once you start to say that racist or blasphemous speech is unacceptable, you're on a greased precipice towards book burning. And the books you are burning include works like Huck Finn, with the most noble representation of a black man in the 18th century, or Moby Dick, where Ahab uses blasphemous speech. So, to get back to the point I brought up at the beginning of my speech about these cartoons, let's be clear here. It's absolutely unacceptable that people should attempt to hurt one another in profound ways, but to curtail someone's right to free speech only serves to drive their ideas underground, where they will fester and they will grow into hate. It's absolutely unconscionable that 100 people should die for those cartoons. But let's be clear about what we're fighting for here. The issue is not whether or not a Danish newspaper's jibe at Muslim faith in the name of free expression was worth the lives lost in the reactions. That's not the issue. The focus needs to be on a much bigger picture. The focus needs to be on the fact that these violent reactions to preserve censorship and to preserve exemptions from universal rights cannot be condoned. 100 lives is a terrible price to pay for those cartoons, but it's those people who believe that their feelings are so important that murder is a reasonable reaction to them being hurt that need to be condemned. Therefore, freedom of speech has to include a license to offend. Because without it, what does free speech mean? I can tell you. It means absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, direct from Anytown, USA, straight from your Technicolor dreams, please give a warm blue room welcome to that most wondrous of wonders, that most beautiful of beauties, Miss Shimities.
Why,